Okay, my exceptional friends, as you know, if you've been following me, I've been really talking about bacteria that live within the body, on the body, everywhere, literally everywhere, and what protects you from that bacteria, or is that bacteria good for you? This is all research. There's no recommendations to do anything whatsoever. But we are trying to establish a bacterial database. And strangely enough, they have just realized where the bacteria comes from. When you have surgery and you get these infections that are very serious, and they seem to be, they say there's really nothing they can do about it now. Everything they do doesn't help. And they realize the bacteria is not from something going into you from the medical facility. It's bacteria that you bring in with you, that invades you once they cut into you in certain ways. And pretty much they're talking about spinal conditions that are the most serious. Now, I don't know if it's because of their spine or that they just focused in on that for this study. But we're going to go through this study. And the bacteria that they're talking about are all over us right now. We live with them all day long. You know, you lick your skin, whatever. They're on everywhere on your whole body. Inside your body, in your intestines, every cell has them. And a lot of them are very beneficial because they make enzymes. And enzymes are very specific, and those enzymes are catalysts. And they also create proteins, which are building blocks. So they break things and they make things. Bacteria are the factories that create these enzymes. And they realize the bacteria, once the bad stuff that normally lives with you, it's okay. But once it gets on the wrong side of the membrane, then you got trouble. That's an infection. And if your body cannot handle it with some kind of chemistry to wipe out that infection, it gets worse and worse. And you get reinfected, and you just can't get rid of it because there's no dominance by your immune system over that invader. And why would that be? Because you don't have the chemistry. And why wouldn't you have the chemistry? Because you don't have the catalysts and the enzymes. And why wouldn't you have that? Is because the bacteria that's supposed to provide that is lacking or possibly not even alive anymore. And we live in a world of a lot of dangerous chemicals, and they damage things within our body that are the things that actually protect us and create the enzymes and the catalysts. Well, enzymes are catalysts, but those are the things that break down food, and they produce these elegant chemistries that recognize invaders and kill them. And they are actually programmed into our body, into our DNA, to say, watch out for this series of chemistry. If you see this, kill it. Send out the guy that's the Lactobacillus reuteri. He's the guy that's got the chemistry. Well, what happens if the Lactobacillus reuteri is dead? Now you got an issue. Now they're starting to understand this right now. And all kinds of chemistry is changing, challenging the status quo. Researchers discover unique neuronal origins in the human brain. This is, scientists reveal, where most hospital infections actually come from. There's a lot of speculation that's been done and not enough true research. And that is what we want to do. And before we can get anywhere, we have to establish a bacterial database. And they have started with this, on the regions in the body, what different types of bacteria live in your lower back, in your upper back, in your throat, and so forth. This is what we need to know. And it sounds like they realize this, and they're starting to look into this. So this is a hopeful progression here. And this just came out today, just came out this morning, 14th of April. Okay, so here we go. Well, actually, today is the 19th of April, so it came out a few days ago, but I just saw it today. Anyway, it relates to exactly what we're going to be talking about. All right, this is beyond cool. This is a macrophage, a neutrophil, and it's going to be chasing this bacteria around to try to kill it. Now, bacteria are tiny, and they don't have to have many molecules in them, but there's an intelligence here. That thing is intelligence trying to get the hell away from that thing, and that's intelligence trying to kill it. And it does eventually get it. Watch what happens here. Now, this is from Andre Trevino. This goes back to 2006. Now, check this out. This is just outrageous. It's only 28 seconds long. Here's the killer. He's chasing that guy down. That thing's running away. Look at him trying to get out of the way. Run, 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 run. This guy's hiding out. He says, I'm just going to stand behind you to hide out. And he says, no, 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 I'm going to get you. He pushes his way. Finally, he's going to get a hold of him. Now, he's already got some in him. Yep, there he goes. He's got another one now. Now, he's digesting them. He's going to digest those and turn them into some kind of goop that your body can handle. Now here's the National Institute of Health explaining this close encounter, lymphoid cells and bacteria. It says during infections, the first reaction, that would be an infection, or that's bacteria are on the wrong side of the membrane, not supposed to be there. During infections, infecting, the first reaction of the host against these microbial microbes, which are pathogens, which damage you, is carried out by the innate immune cells. Innate means part which is inside of you, it's just a normal part of you. And they're immune cells. Well, those are the thing that chase the other things around. They recognize conserved structures on the pathogens. What they recognize is a magnetic signature. They recognize a magnetic signature. All right, so what they do is they recognize that molecular pattern. Afterwards, some of these innate cells can phagocytose and destroy the pathogens. What they do is they send out enzymes, all right, secreting cytokines, which are the enzymes that would modulate the immune response to the challenge. So modulates is going to kill it. All right. This rapid response is normally followed by the adaptive immunity, where your body starts to create these enzymes automatically, which means to me to have them create new bacteria. So your body is going to slowly, or maybe hopefully quickly, is followed by the adaptive immunity, more specific and essential for a complex pathogen clearance in many cases. In other words, that pathogen is going to stay inside you until you have a normal adaptive immunity inside of you, so you can send out troops against these guys. All right, some innate immune cells, usually named antigen-presenting cells, such as macrophages, that's the thing I showed you, and dendritic cells, are able to process internalized invaders, which he ate it, internalized invaders, and present their antigens to lymphocytes. So they have the lymphocytes built inside. They present these things to their lymphocytes, which kill them, triggering an adaptive immune response. So they actually programs them and kills them. Right? And then it goes on, nevertheless, the traditional boundary of separated roles between innate and adaptive immunity has been blurred by several studies. The whole thing is they just haven't done enough studies. This goes back to 2016. This is 8 years ago. We really need to look into this much, much deeper. As far as I'm concerned, every bit of chemistry that's done in you has to have an enzyme. And if it has an enzyme, that means it was created by a bacteria. And the bacteria in our bodies now is under assault. All right, this is kind of important to understand, is that this is a new organ, they call it. It's a network of these dense connective tissues that are fluid-filled compartments, and where all of these bacteria and enzymes exist, and they're membranes, basically, called the interstitium. It's a full-fledged organ. They're all connected throughout the entire body. It's one giant system. And it is a group of tissues that with a unique structure performing a specialized task, like the heart or the liver. So your heart is, it's got to have a fabric that can do that all day long. Same thing with your lungs. But your liver doesn't really do all that. Your gallbladder doesn't do all this thumping around. And anyway, what I'm getting at is you need this fabric-filled network which surrounds every organ, every muscle, every tendon. However, tendons themselves have almost zero blood, as I showed you. Whoops. Well, this is interesting too. I believe this right here, the submucosa. You see it, submucosa? This is the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and they have different layers of tissue. Some of them absorb things, the stomach keeps the acids out and so forth. But I believe this is the layer that they missed. It might be that layer right there, because there's a whole batch of layers to every organ in your body, and everywhere. These are absorptive organs. These are the ones that are in your digestive system. So that's a little different than the fascia that's around your muscles and tendons and so forth. But it's everywhere. It's everywhere. However, as I showed here, in the tendons, especially in the spinal tendons, there's no blood there. So therefore, there is no lymph fluids. And the lymph fluids are the things that carry the enzymes and the bacteria to clean the things up. So now you've capped it back over. Your body should have been able to take care of that, but if you don't have the enzymes and the bacteria to create the catalyst, which is the enzyme, it can't attack these invaders, which are now trapped inside your body. Okay, this is when they first announced the discovery of this interstitial layer. And this is NBC News, so it's not somebody off the wall. Now, it says the research published in the journal Scientific Reports suggests a network of dense connective tissue. These are these mats. And fluid-filled compartments called the interstitium is a full-fledged organ, but it is a group of tissues with a unique structure performing a specialized task like the heart or the liver. Okay, so we already heard that, but the thing to understand is, let's say this is on your heart, and this is interstitium, and it's got to go boom, 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 boom. But then you have a kidney, or you have a pancreas, or you have a liver, which don't do that, first of all. So it's got to be a different structure right away. Secondly, they have toxic things. Your stomach has to have some kind of special coating. You don't want your stomach lining in your lungs. They're specialized tasks. Heart, liver, lungs, kidney, pancreas, prostate. Every one of those things has a different chemistry. So more than 2/3 of the human body is water, which is the interstitial fluid, and blood. Most of that contained inside cells. And blood is saturated with transition metals. It's almost 100% metals outside of the watery substances. Now, much of the rest, about 20% of the fluid in the body, is interstitial, which is this sort of brownish looking fluid. It's a Latin word containing inter, or between the sister or to place, literally between the other places. It's a layer between that they never knew about. It's a fluid-filled highway. And they now understand it is a fluid-filled highway, and it runs, and I'll show you a better picture of this. But anyway, I've shown this 1,000,000 times, and you could look it up if you want to look it up. The fluid and tissues connecting them are called interstitium, and they're found throughout the body, both just below the skin and in the digestive, respiratory, urinary system, everywhere, whole body. Every single thing in your body is coated by this layer, which is the protective layer, and it has to be saturated with some kind of fluids that contain the right chemistry, which is enzymes basically, that recognize invaders, keep them out, and also keep the fluid balance correct in there, the pH and all that stuff. It has to have the correct support. It has to be the correct fluid around your nervous system tissues and around your lungs and your heart and everywhere. Keep the invaders out, keep the good stuff in, and allow the stuff that you want in and out. So the stuff's got to come in and out. There's no way in the world it can stay in there and you can live. So you have to have that membrane functioning to keep the bad stuff out, keep the good stuff in, allow some stuff in and out. Very, very tricky job. All right, this is ultra important to understand that the only way you can get the chemicals to do the instantaneous job, which is a catalyst, is to have enzymes. And the only way you get the enzymes is to have the bacteria. All right, so if you don't have the bacteria, forget about it. You don't have enzymes, you don't have chemicals. Now, what does an enzyme do and what is a bacteria? Bacteria are living cells, single cell organisms, tiny, tiny, tiny things. They have the capability of consuming things, waste and so forth, of all different types, because they're the trash collectors. They can reproduce, so once they're established in your body, hopefully if you don't kill them, they'll keep going. They actually can produce enzymes. Well, better said, bacteria are the factories that produce enzymes. So don't forget, the bacteria, they have these little flagellas on them, and they run around all over the place. They are the things that produce the enzymes. Well, what are enzymes? All right, so I am going to be going on and on and on about enzymes and how important they are, and they are what they call catalysts. A catalyst makes things happen millions of times faster than normal. Every bacteria makes something like this, and it's just like it's got to be exactly the same looking thing every single time. If you just went like this, that's it. It doesn't work anymore, or it's a different type of bacteria enzyme. Enzymes do click chemistry, which means they come up to something else and they go click, and everything else happens instantaneously, and this doesn't even get used up. Then it goes click, 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 click. That's the coolness of an enzyme, but you only get it from a bacteria. All right, here it is right here. Enzymes let chemical reactions in the body happen millions of times faster than without the enzyme. So if you didn't have this enzyme, first of all, it's not going to happen at all. And if you only have a few of them, you're not going to get enough reactions to make your body work correctly. You have to have a certain number of bacterial enzymes to make everything work. But enzymes are not part of the product, so they click. They go click, 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 so they can be used up again and again, reused again and again. They go bonk, 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 and sooner or later they get consumed by something else, apparently. What I'm getting at is they don't last a bazillion years. I don't think, but who knows? It's possible. But you need to have these enzymes in your body, and in order to get the enzymes, you need bacteria. I'm going to show you the process right now. All right, so we know this does click chemistry. All right, so we talked about that. It doesn't get used up. Click, 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 click. Well, where does this come from? All right, here's where it comes from, is from a bacteria. All right, that bacteria has its own DNA, its own nucleoid DNA. All right, so this DNA says, I'm going to make these ribosomes. That's my job in life, is to create these ribosomes, literally. Just like this, in our DNA, it says 5 fingers, 5 toes, da 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 da. This says, make a flagella, do this to make these little furry things, and then produce these ribosomes. Now, what does a ribosome do? Well, a ribosome does this. When it comes out and unfurls, see those balls of ribosomes? They come out, and they unsheath, and then out pops an enzyme or a protein. Either way, it's the same deal. A bacteria creates either one. Proteins build things, enzymes destroy things. But are the enzymes proteins? Well, yes and no. They're both the same, but one builds and one breaks. All right, you saw that the ribosome, which is this whole thing, was created inside the bacterial cell. It was a single cell. And it creates the exact same chemistry every time. It's going to be just this. And what it does is it squirts out a chain. It's just a big long program chain. and it goes and it programs a messenger RNA strand. That messenger, and you see this cloud? That means there's transferase, which is an enzyme, another enzyme. You have to have the enzyme. The enzyme makes this thing go and squirts out the mRNA in this exact sequence, transferred because of the transferase. Up here, you have polymerase, which is another enzyme. Anytime you see ASE, basically it's an enzyme. And that snips into our DNA and lets that mitochondrial DNA, that messenger RNA, come in there and sync in with our DNA through this enzyme transfer. And then we become immune to whatever this told us to become immune to. Or we become sick for whatever this told us to become sick from. But normally we can counteract this with our own enzymes. Now we may get sick for a while, but then when these things must evolve, because once you get a new sickness in you, you have to create a new enzyme. To create a new enzyme, you have to have a new bacteria, as far as I'm concerned. Or maybe they're just waiting around waiting to do something until they get turned on. I don't know. But your immune system has to respond. How does it respond? I think it makes new bacteria. I'd like to know about that when somebody gets sick, like right away. Does their bacteria change? It'd be interesting to find out. The thing is, this bacterial database I'm talking about, this is non-invasive whatsoever. We should be able to come up with some kind of a simple stool sample and, saliva and stool, and from that we should be able to get a pretty good profile of, I would think, to start off with that. But they did say in this other study that they found all different, like on the top of your back is different than the lower back, and lower than that, and your legs are different than your feet, and I agree with all that. But normally that's on the outside. I want to know what's coming through your poop, basically, and what's in your saliva, because those are the molecules that's what we can easily look at. And it appears that they are a good indicator. At least it's a place to start. Okay, National Institute of Health again. They're talking about the central role of enzymes as biological catalysts. Now, don't forget the enzymes. Without the bacteria, you do not get the enzymes. Enzymes are bacteria are the factories that create the enzymes. No factory, no enzyme. It says a fundamental task of proteins, which I just showed you. Proteins are the same as enzymes. They act as enzymes, catalysts that increase the rate of virtually all chemical reactions within cells. Although RNAs are capable of catalyzing some reactions, most biological reactions are catalyzed by proteins, which are the enzymes. In the absence of enzymatic catalysts, which is this, most biological reactions are so slow they would not occur under the mild conditions of temperature and pressure that are compatible with life. They just wouldn't happen without the enzyme. Enzymes accelerate the rates of such reactions by well over 1,000,000-fold. So reactions that would take years, in the absence of these enzyme catalysts, can occur in fractions of seconds if catalyzed by the appropriate enzyme. Simple as that. And cells contain thousands. In cells, they contain thousands of different enzymes, and their activities determine which of the many possible chemical reactions actually take place within that cell. Now, if they contain thousands of these enzymes, that's like a pharmacy ready to go. You're ready to go. But what if one of the bacteria is dead and it cannot produce an enzyme? Or what if there's only a few of those bacteria living and they're supposed to be, proliferate, they're supposed to be everywhere? this is what we don't know. We don't know who's got a normal microbiome, and they might all be totally different. I might be way off the base here, but I don't think so. They have found already that there are absolutely effects from the microbiome being different in different populations in sickness. So they know something's going on there. They just need to get focused in on a database. That's my opinion. And the database relates to the bacteria that creates the enzyme. Okay, my friends, once again, the lymphatic system, this is National Institute of Health, and they're talking, this is just recently published, and they're talking about the lymphatic system. That's where you have all that lymph fluid circulating all through everywhere, and it carries the enzymes and bacteria with it through that fluid-filled highway, basically. Now, it gets kind of involved, but the original thing about being invaded in the back, and I mean having surgery in the back, and these reoccurring problems back there are because it's covered by this dense layer that has no blood in it. You see what it says here? There's territories of the body that do not appear to contain lymph, which includes the bone marrow, the epidermis, which is the really outside skin, as well as other tissues where blood vessels are absent. Well, you saw what it looks like in a person's back, and this is where they did that surgery. Right there, they capped over the top of it without any blood. There's no enzymes. There's nothing to go there to help out to kill that invasion. No, so they give you a ton of antibiotics to kill all kinds of things, and they're probably going to kill a lot more than what you wanted to get killed. Now, there may be possibly the antibiotics are not the solution. Probiotics could very well be the solution, because the probiotics, which are bacteria, they're nothing more than bacteria. They create the enzymes. So somebody that didn't ever have a problem with this, they get the surgery, they get the same stuff, it gets inside their back, and they get a little festered or whatever, and then their body deals with it, and they get healthy again. Another person, they never get over it. They just never get over it. They just, apparently, in my mind, the enzymes are not there, or they can't get there, or they're capped over in such a manner as it's really sequestered that zone so that it just can't heal. I don't know. But I would assume if you had the same enzymes and bacteria in that region as a person that healed up, you might be okay. Now, could we figure out what it was? Maybe. You know, they're in there cutting them into them anyway. They might as well take some stuff and see what kind of bacteria is in there. Well, what is it actually that's invading them? And what is it that exists in their entire body? Because that's where you use the fecal swab and the oral swab, nasal swab. Just, it's something easy. Bing, 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 done. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can come up with patterns. It might be as simple as that. We don't know. But I see that they're starting to understand it is an issue with these enzymes. And that's starting to float to the top finally. Okay, so the lymph fluids go to the lymph nodes, which are these little bean-shaped places. And they're filters. They serve as a filter and function to monitor lymphatic fluid, because it's always flowing through there, and it filters the nasty stuff. So it monitors the lymphatic fluid and the blood composition. It drains excess tissue fluid and leaked plasma proteins. It engulfs pathogens, augments an immune response, and eradicates infections. Well, eradicates infections how? Augments an immune response how? Why? I mean, it does. I agree. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying, how does it do it? That's what I want to know. So we got to really look at what does a lymph node actually do, and how does it do it? What does it use to do that? How does it get the chemistry? Okay, this is a pretty short read, but it's very good. And this is from Harborview Medical Center, University of Washington, Seattle. And they are talking about these hospital infections and where do they really come from. And here's the story. Healthcare providers and patients traditionally thought that infections patients get while in the hospital are caused by superbugs they're exposed to while they're in a medical facility. Well, that's not the case apparently. They have done all kinds of things to mitigate those kind of infections, and it just doesn't seem to help. Nothing they do seems to help. So most healthcare-associated infections are caused by previously harmless bacteria the patients bring already in with them. They already had it on their bodies before they even entered the hospital. So we live with all kinds of invasive bacteria, and it doesn't invade us. Why? Why is it all of a sudden invading us? Well, we've opened a wound, all right, because a surgery is literally a wound. All right, research comparing bacteria in the microbiome, that's my region, in the guts, in the bowels, and all of the places where the food goes through and gets processed and gets broken down into viable components we can use. And you need bacteria creating enzymes to make that instantaneous breakdown. Bacteria creating the enzymes are catalysts. Catalysts work at literally millions of times faster than that same process that would happen. But without the catalyst, it would take years. With the catalyst, done. Less than a quarter of a second. So the catalysts are very, very important, these enzymes, and they only come from bacteria, and the bacteria primarily live in your microbiome. But they populate your whole body, and a lot of them are not good for you. So you have to have membranes where these bacteria that are good for you live, and they create the enzymes there. It's called a fluid-filled highway. It's an interstitium, just been announced in 2018. Now, so the microbiome is where all of that bacteria lives. And they colonize our nose, skin, other areas of the body with the bacteria that cause pneumonia, diarrhea, bloodstream infections, surgical site infections. Shows that the bacteria living innocuously on our own bodies when we're healthy are most often responsible for these bad infections when we're sick. So you already have them. See, research comparing bacteria in the microbiome, that's inside of us. Those that colonize our nose, skin, other areas of the bodies with the bacteria that cause, and they live in the same place with the bacteria that cause pneumonia, diarrhea, bloodstream infections, surgical site infections. It's all there, but it doesn't affect you innocuously. They live on our own bodies when we're healthy and most often responsible for the bad infections when we're sick, because now they have an entrance point. Our newly published research in Science Translational Medicine adds to the growing number of studies supporting this idea. We show that many surgical site infections after spinal surgery are caused by microbes that are already on the patient's skin. There's nothing new here. It's just that they have a way to get in, and once they're in there, now they're talking about spinal surgery, and there's a mat of what's called aponeurosis tendon that shields your back, and it's the structural integrity of the back, and that could be almost like a blanket over these spinal things, because they keep talking about spinal infections, which could be something specific, or they could just be that well, let's go a little further with this. But if it's a spinal, I think I can sort of understand because of this tendon mat, which is basically impenetrable. Once you get the stuff behind it, I don't think it's ever coming out of there. Okay, so don't forget, we're at the Harborview Medical Center, University of Washington, Seattle. And they say, as a team of physician scientists with expertise including critical care, infectious diseases, laboratory medicine, microbiology, pharmacy, orthopedics, and surgery, we wanted to better understand how and why surgical infections were occurring in their patients, despite following recommended protocols to prevent them. They did literally everything, they say, and they washed everything down with ultraviolet light to kill all the bacteria. They did just everything, and nothing seemed to have any effect on these infections. And they realized it was the bacteria that was the cause of the infection, was bacteria that came in primarily with the patient. So the patient is living with this deadly bacteria day after day after day. It doesn't bother you because you have the ability to separate it from you and your vital tissue. Once you cut into that, now it's a different issue. Now, you still, most people can fight back because they have the correct bacteria and enzymes in them. So everybody doesn't get infected, only certain ones. When they do, there's no stopping the infection until you get the right chemistry there. Without the right chemistry, nothing in your body is going to work correctly. And the only thing that really does chemistry in such a fast way is the enzymes. That's what they're designed to do. And if you don't have the enzymes, that means you didn't have the bacteria. And bacteria is vulnerable. Antibiotics kills it. And other things in your environment kills bacteria. It needs to be supplemented, or it needs to be resistant somehow to some of these deadly things that cause the death of your good bacteria. Or it has to be replaced. I believe that's what the research is indicating. And once again, I'm not telling you go take this or don't take that. This is strictly research, and these are the people that are doing the research. It's not me. I am reporting as a consolidator. I work with a lot of different people, and they have a lot of different expertise, from just people like to work in farms, and they understand farm animals, and all the way up to people that do neurosurgery and bacterial engineering and all that stuff. So, and a lot of things, this end of the spectrum doesn't end. These people understand. They're just working with dirt. These people are working with microscopes. It's just two different worlds. But in between, there's a whole bunch of life going on that nobody seems to understand completely, and I don't either. So I'm not saying I do, but I'm starting to focus in on the fact that the catalysts, because of their instantaneous reactions, that's basically the only thing that can work fast enough to break down the chemistry to do what's called nucleophilic substitution, which is you're substituting molecules all the time in your body. All the time. There's new ones coming in, the old ones going out. That's what it is. It's just like in your house. You have a bunch of trash stuff comes in, you eat it, the junk wrapping and all this stuff and garbage, and you throw it out. That's how your body works. And the only thing that can do that is enzymes and bacteria. Those two things, bacteria can eat and break down products and actually carry them around in your body, and it has to live off of something, so it's going to eat something, and it's also going to squirt out these ribosomes, and the ribosomes are the things that create the enzymes, which are the proteins, and the enzymes, which are the breakers. The proteins are the makers, the enzymes are the breakers. Still come from the same place, they're ribosomes. And now they're starting to understand this, it appears. All right, here's another important thing to take away from this. I asked why they were working in the spinal area, and because that I think can be actually sequestered. So, all right, let me just read you this. Prior studies on these surgical site infections were limited to a single species of bacteria, and this is very old technology and methods. The new technologies have opened the door to studying all types of bacteria and testing their antibiotic resistance genes simultaneously. That's what we're looking for, is a whole batch of them at one time. We get to find out how many of each species is there in a sample, and that indicates there's going to be a pattern, and they already have found patterns. Okay, so what happened though is, I was wondering why they focused on the spinal, and I have information about this. I'm going to talk to you about why this is a kind of a real vulnerable area. So anyway, they focus infections on the spinal surgery for a few reasons. Similar numbers of women and men undergo spine surgery, various reasons across their lifespan, meaning the results would be applicable to both genders and a larger group of people. Secondly, more healthcare resources are expended on spinal surgery than any other type of surgical procedure in the U.S. Third, infection following spine surgery can be particularly, and third, following spine surgery can be particularly devastating patients because it often requires repeat surgeries, long courses of antibiotics for a chance of a cure. Antibiotics, again, those are the things that kill infecting agents. Yes, absolutely, no question. You may need those, but you still need your good bacteria. That's the key. Without the good bacteria, you're in trouble. Now, it says over a 1-year period, they sampled bacteria living in the nose, skin, and stool of 200 patients before they had their surgeries. We then followed this group for 90 days to compare those samples with any infections that later occurred. So they found out what bacteria is actually in these people's bodies, and that's what we want to know. We want a database. And they found it. They found all the bacteria, sampled the bacteria. You know, there's going to be a ton of different ones in the nose, the skin, the stool, for 200 patients. We want to do it for a big group, and the reason is so that we can develop patterns. So they followed them for 90 days, but all they wanted to do is compare if the infections came from whatever they found before in their body. Their body's going to have all that stuff, basically. And what I think that's exactly what they found out. The results revealed that while the species of bacteria living on the back skin of patients are vary remarkably between people, so I might have some who knows what kind of stuff living on me, and you might have something totally different. There's some clear patterns. That's what we want to know, is the clear patterns. Bacteria colonizing the upper back around the neck and shoulders are more similar to those in the nose. Those normally present on the lower back are more similar to those in the gut and stool. The relative frequency of their presence in these skin regions closely mirrors how often they show up in infections after surgery on those same specific regions of the spine. All right, so whatever's living there in abundance ends up infecting. Apparently, that's what they're saying. And it makes sense. I mean, you're just cutting into it. It's going to be living there. I say, oh, look at that. Right in. Now, how do you get it out of there? Most people don't have a problem with that. Their body can fight back and kill them off, but they have to have the right bacteria creating the right enzymes. So what we need to know is when somebody goes in for this kind of surgery and has no problems whatsoever, what was in their bodies, what was in their stool system. And then when the ones that go in and have the issues, what bacteria live in their gut. And you're going to see a pattern. The clear patterns will develop. These will all have lactobacillus acidophilus missing. And they're going to have an infection. And these have plentiful. And the more they have, the less infections they have. But you need to be able to track this. There's some kind of a relationship. And again, strictly research. Certainly I'm not telling you ever take anything. All right, now. But they found this is where these things are invading, but most people, the invasion doesn't get to them. It's not like they didn't get invaded. They got invaded too. But they were able to fight back. That's my take from the research that I have examined. And this is a compilation of everybody's research, not just mine. It's all primarily the National Institute of Health and all top universities. All right, listen to see if this makes sense to you. Nearly 60% of the infections were also resistant to the preventive antibiotic administered during surgery. So normally they're going to give you this antibiotic and it's supposed to kill all these things. But no, they were resistant. They didn't die. The antiseptic used to clean the skin before incision or both. And 60% were immune So they didn't bother them. They washed them and did all whatever they do, and they still lived fine. 60% of them were okay. Now, it turns out the source of this resistance, this antibiotic resistance, was also not acquired in the hospital, but from microbes. All right? These microbes, the patient had already been living with unknowingly. So the patient already had these antibiotic-resistant bacteria living on them. All right, think about this carefully now. They have antibiotic-resistant bacteria living on you and me right now. Why aren't we getting infected? Because we have no way to fight back. It's antibiotic resistant. No, it's not completely antibiotic resistance. It's resistance to the antibiotics, but it can be overcome by our own immune system, which is the enzymes, and these specific enzymes that keep these things at bay. And once you get infected with them, it's a different story. Now, if your immune system is not pumped up where it's got plenty of these enzymes and plenty of bacteria, and everybody's happy living in there, and they're creating more and more of these bacteria as they need more and more enzymes, you're good to go. It will attack and kill these things, even though they're deep inside of you in this surgery. That's the key. If you don't have a good response to them, once they get in there, you're in trouble. And let me show you how the back it's like a Band-Aid around that infection, keeping it infected, basically. All right, here's why I think this spinal surgery could be the reason they're having such reinfections. Now, way down here is where your spine is, way underneath everything. They got to go, well, they're going to be working in this area here, down in your spine. All right, and it says small bundle of fibers. Anyway, there's fibers all in here. All right, now, once you get layer after layer after layer, by the time you get out to here, well, even here, it's just like a big patch over the top. And this stuff is I don't think there's hardly any fluids in this. In your body, my understanding is that your body has lymph fluids and blood, and the lymph fluid exceeds the blood volume 4 times. So you have 4 times as much lymph as you do blood. That's what I'm led to believe. Now, I could be wrong, but I don't know if anybody really knows for sure. But this ends up, this is the area you injured, you just bandaged it over there, so you really don't have any blood flowing into that area. There's not a whole lot of blood movement in that area. You see it here? This is backed off a little bit. And you're getting down to here where there's still no bloody stuff, and down in here there's still nothing. Basically nothing but bone and a little bit of fleshy stuff would be in there. And that's it. So you're not washing this area with blood like you are the whole rest of your body. The blood it goes everywhere. You get a cut here, well, it heals up pretty good because you're just continuously washing it with the fluids. There's not too many fluids, I don't think, the lymph fluids in tendon. Tendon is just like you put a rubber patch over that and kept that bacteria in there. So the only way for you to kill that bacteria is your body has to kill it. The only way for your body to kill it is with the enzymes. The only way for you to have the enzymes is from the bacteria. That's it. All right, now don't forget, this is nothing more than like a rubber patch. There's virtually no blood in here, as you can see. Anytime you see the redder it is, the more blood there is there. Muscles have a lot of blood. Tendon have virtually no blood at all. This is a ponerosis, flat sheets of tendon. They're nothing more than elastins. And once you cap over the top of that infection, there's no way for the stuff to get into interstitium to flow through there. So that's a problem. I could see where that could be an issue.